It's a great day here at C&S Corvettes in Sarasota, Florida. My name's Lyle and I'm going to be helping you to install the Clevis kit on your power seat track from your 97 all the way up to your 2013 Corvette today. Now, first thing you have to do is pull the seat out of the car. It's really simple. There are 4 15mm nuts and you unplug the seat. If you can't do that, odds are you should have your mechanic watch this video and do it for you. Before we get started, let me go through the tools that you're going to need and what comprises the kit that you're going to be using today. Tools that you are going to need. Not a whole lot, thankfully. To do this job, you're going to need a 13mm wrench. You're going to need a 13mm socket along with a ratchet. If you have access to an E12, which is basically an inverted Torx head, great, use it. If not, for what we're going to be doing, we can really just use vice grip, because you're never going to use these parts again that we're removing. So this is the professional way to do it, but a vice grip works just fine. You're also going to need a drill. Now, you'll notice that in our kit, we do include a drill bit. That is for the second part of the rivet removal process. Any larger drill bit that you happen to have, this is a 9/32, will be just fine for removing the head of the rivet. We'll get to that in a minute, but just know that you need both. What we're going to be talking about replacing today are the Clevises under the seat that control the up-down motion at the front and the rear of the seat. Now, what a Clevis looks like is this. If you have an early C5, 97 to say early 2000, if you have a car that's newer than that all the way up to 2013, they're going to be black, just like this one. Unfortunately, in their wisdom, GM decided to make them out of plastic, which was great for the first 10 years of life on these cars, but plastic with time gets brittle. And the first time that you drop your butt into that car and these have gotten brittle, they shear right here. And when you try to put your seat up, down at the front or up, down at the rear, you're going to get a really nice clicking and mechanical sound, but the seat isn't going to move. Our kit is going to fix that for you. Let me go through what the kit consists of. Obviously, we have 2 Clevises. Now, these are CNC'd out of T6061 aircraft aluminum. Nothing will ever break these. Once they're installed, you will never have this problem again. Now, along with that, we have 4 spacers right here, these black things. Okay. We have 4 washers, white. We have 2 13mm bolts, 2 13mm lock nuts, 2 self-tapping Phillips head screws, and our drill bit. That, in essence, is the kit. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you where you're going to start this process on the seat, and then we're going to move forward with the process of getting these installed safely and relatively quickly. The great news is, unlike our other seat track kit that you've probably seen the video of for the flanges and for the anti-rock, you don't have to take your seat apart to do this. All you have to do is turn your seat upside down, and that's going to make this go a lot quicker. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, now that we've got the seat up on our workbench, let me give you a brief overview of how this part of the seat track functions. That way you have a better idea of why we are doing the things we are doing. This, at the bottom, the way I have the seat, is the front of your seat track. This is the rear, okay? What you're looking at here are 2 motors, okay? Those motors are controlled by the switch, and each one of them has a little drive shaft that goes into a little transmission. That transmission spins the threaded rod that these Clevises ride on, forward and backward. That's what gives you your up and down motion at the front and rear of your seat. Each one operates independently of the other. Now, if only one of these is broken, truly you only have to replace one of them to fix your problem. However, obviously, you've gone this far, you have all your tools out, I highly recommend you replace both of them. That way, you never have to do this again. First things first, if you have white Clevises, if these plastics are white on your car, you have different bolts than what you see here. In fact, yours aren't even bolts, they're just pressure pins. They are literally pressed into place. So all you're going to need to do is using a pair of pliers or even a punch, just push on the shaft and they will pop out this way. You can set them aside. Anything mid-2000 all the way to 2013 are bolts that are threaded, which go through these mounting flanges. So you actually have to remove them using an implement. This is where that E12 bit comes in, the E12 socket, or your vice grips. Okay, let me grab that and we'll get that done. Let's go ahead and remove those bolts. Okay, so as you can see, these bolts are threaded in the middle. So there's really nothing threading into the plastic clevis itself. It threads in through the main mounting point for the crossbar, just like our bolts are going to do. Okay, so this you can pitch because you're never going to use it again. Lift. You notice how this moves? This is what allows us to not have to take the seat apart to do the job. This moves up, gives us access to everything we need. Now, this is a spacer that came from the factory. You're not going to use that again either, so set it aside. You'll notice that the clevis spins freely, okay? And at the very end of the clevis is a rivet, which you can plainly see right here. What we're going to do is we're going to remove the head of that rivet, remove the two washers that are under that rivet so that we can take this clevis off. In order to do that, we're going to use our larger drill bit. As I said, a 9/32 is what I'm using now. I'm going to drill the head of that rivet off. I'm then going to show you the two washers that we're going to put aside and save for later. Now that we've completed drilling off the head of the rivet, two small washers pop off. You'll notice one is thick, has a beveled hole, and it is a small hole. The other one is a thin washer with a much larger hole. When these go back on, and they will go back on, the thin one goes on first, the thicker one goes on second, and our screw is going to go directly through there. But before we can do that, if you look right here, let me get you close. Take this clevis now, screws right off, and we leave the threaded rod exposed. You'll notice that there is a hole right here. That's where the rivet used to be. What we need to do now is take the drill bit that's included with our kit, put it in the chuck, and drill down 1/2 inch into the center of that shaft. And I'm going to do that right now. All right, guys, now that we've got our 1/2 inch hole drilled into the center of this threaded shaft right here, we're ready to take the old clevis off, which you just unscrew and set aside. Take your new clevis. Now, there's right hand and left hand thread. Left hand thread is at the front, right hand thread is at the back. They only go on one way and there's only two of them, so this shouldn't be too hard. Go ahead and get it started and screw it on. Go ahead and screw it all the way down for now to give you the best access possible to the very end of that shaft. Okay. Now, remember those two washers we talked about earlier, big and little? You're going to pick those up. Remember, thin washer, large hole bottom, thick washer, small hole top. Screw included with our kit goes through the middle of those and goes right into the hole we just drilled. Grab your Phillips screwdriver, get it started, and tighten it down. Now that clevis is secured just like it was from the factory. We can go ahead and roll that out a little bit. Now we're ready to reattach it to the cross shaft right here through that threaded hole. So here's our cross shaft, here's our connecting point, here's our threaded hole. What we want to do now is get these holes matched up as closely as possible between the holes in the clevis and the hole in the center here. Get that lined up close. Okay, I've got it maneuvered into place, guys, and you can see that I can put the screwdriver directly through all those holes. Now we're ready to grab the hardware from our kit and reattach this permanently to the cross piece. Let me get those pieces for you. Pieces we're going to be dealing with at this point are the 13mm bolt, the 13mm nut, the two white washers, and the two black spacers. First things first. Take your bolt and slide one of the white washers right down to the head. Take that bolt and start it just into the side of the clevis. You don't want to push it too far because between the mounting plate and the inside of the clevis, we have to put one of our spacers. So we slide the spacer in. If for some reason it doesn't want to start, odds are you don't have these holes lined up as perfectly as they could be. So you can either screw or unscrew the clevis, or you can just manipulate the seat bottom while it's out of the car. Since it's attached to nothing, pushing or pulling on the seat bottom will move it, just like that. So let's adjust this. Well, that looks about as good as it's going to get, so let's try that. Once you get it started by hand, go ahead and use your ratchet to get it most of the way through that threaded section. Now you turn it and you turn it until you see it just start to come out the other side of this center, and then you're going to back it off just a quarter turn, because we have to make sure to put our second spacer in. Grab your second spacer. It goes in on the other side of the clevis. Hold that in place and go ahead and continue to run the bolt in. Keep running that bolt in just like I'm doing until you see it come out the other side, begin to peek out the far side of the clevis. If you look carefully, you can see that the bolt, the end of the bolt, is just starting to come out the opposite side of the clevis. That's great, that's right where we want it. So let's go ahead and run it out a few more turns. My goal here is I want to have enough threads poking out over here to get the lock nut and the washer on it, but not so many that I can't get the nut between the seat track itself and the clevis. So you got to find a happy medium just to where you can get that nut started. Right about there looks good. Now, take your remaining white washer, put it over the end of the bolt, take your lock nut, hold it in place, and continue to move your bolt into the assembly, like so. And being a lock nut, you only get so many turns on that, and then it's going to want to spin in your hand because you're going to get into the nylon locking mechanism, which is great. Here's where it gets intricate, and this is almost the only reason I made this video, because this is the important part. Because this is threaded in the middle here, you have 2 points of tightening. This tightens this side of the clevis. The nut tightens this side of the clevis. What we don't want to do is tighten either side so much that we can't move these spacers in here by hand. So we have to make sure to reach a happy medium. So first thing I'm going to do is make sure that both of these can move. Okay, I've got movement on one, movement on both. Great, right where we want to be. Let me grab my 13mm wrench. So, 13mm wrench on the 13mm nut. Tighten until still movement on both. Great, we're doing it nice and even. Just nice and easy. Still movement on both spacers. Every couple of turns, check to make sure that those are still happy and floating, because we don't want them to bind. Whoop, that one's a little too tight. Let me back it off just a little bit. Got our movement back, okay. Now, this side, I can probably go a little tighter on the nut side. So at this point, I'm gonna stop moving the ratchet, and I'm going to use the wrench to tighten down the nut on that side. All right, movement on both, nice and easy. This completes the installation of this clevis at the front of this seat track. As far as lubrication goes, red axle grease, white lithium, anything you want to spray or brush onto here is fine. There's nothing that's going to hurt this like the wrong lubricant could have hurt plastic. You're going to repeat this exact same process up here with this one. Nothing different whatsoever. Any questions? No? Okay. Well, now, once these are both done, you're ready to put this back in your car. Again, you've got the 4 nuts. Make sure to plug everything back in. If at any time you have questions or you don't feel that you are in a safe or knowledgeable place with what you're doing, you need to call me at 800-886-5064. My name is Lyle. I'm the guy who does this. I'm the guy who does hundreds of these every day, and I will help you however I can. Once again, we're C&S Corvettes. My name is Lyle. If you have any problems, questions, or wish to order some of our product, feel free to contact me at 800-886-5064. We'll be seeing you again soon with some more product.